The discovery. The quantum resonance cannons weren't supposed to work. That's what Dr. Sarah Chen kept telling herself as she stared at the test results flooding her holographic display. The theoretical physics said it was impossible. You couldn't create a weapon that could selectively disrupt quantum fields while leaving normal matter intact. Yet here she was, watching the impossible unfold in the Jupiter testing grounds. "Run it again," she ordered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The test drone deployed another target, a heavily shielded battleship replica based on captured Rilikan technology. The most advanced alien shields in known space, capable of withstanding sustained fire from conventional mass drivers and energy weapons. The human prototype ship, little more than a skeletal framework built around the quantum resonance core, fired a single pulse. There was no dramatic explosion, no spectacular-like show. The target simply came apart, its quantum fields collapsing in perfect synchronization. Where a battleship had been, only a cloud of inert particles remained, falling like snow in Jupiter's upper atmosphere. Admiral James Torres watched from the observation deck, his weathered face impossible to read. After 30 years commanding Earth's defense fleet, he'd seen humanity go from barely reaching Mars to establishing colonies across 12 star systems. But this changed everything. "The Galactic Confederation won't be able to ignore this," he said finally. "They've been treating us like children playing with matches since we joined. This will force them to recognize us as equals." Sarah wasn't so sure. She'd spent enough time at diplomatic functions to know how the older species viewed humans, as brilliant but dangerous upstarts who'd achieved in centuries what had taken them millennia. Or they'll try to shut us down completely. The quantum resonance technology, it bypasses every defense system in known space. Nothing can stop it. Except the firing ship itself, Torres pointed out. The quantum resonance field required perfect calibration. Even a slight miscalculation would cause the effect to rebound on the firing vessel. It was an elegant solution to concerns about the weapon being too powerful. You couldn't use it without putting yourself at equal risk. The demonstration continued through the Jovian night. Each test confirmed what they'd discovered. Humanity had created something unprecedented in the galaxy's long history. A weapon that didn't destroy through brute force, but by elegantly unraveling the quantum foundation of matter itself. When the Confederation's annual summit convened on Arcturus Prime 3 months later, Earth's delegation arrived with full documentation of their breakthrough. The human ships, sleek and small compared to the massive dreadnoughts of older species, took up their assigned positions in high orbit. Sarah stood at the podium, facing representatives of over 200 spacefaring civilizations. The oldest among them had been crossing the stars when humans were still hunting mammoths. Now she had to convince them that humanity could be trusted with technology that made their most powerful weapons obsolete. "The quantum resonance system isn't just a weapon," she explained, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. "It's a proof of concept that opens up entirely new avenues of physics. We're already developing applications for energy production, FTL travel, even medical technology." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices as translator systems struggled to keep up with the heated discussions. The Rilikan delegation was particularly vocal, their crystalline forms vibrating with agitation. They'd long prided themselves on having the most advanced shield technology in known space. First Speaker Zathrax of the Confederation Council raised all 4 hands for silence. His species, the Vor, had been among the founders of galactic civilization. "Dr. Chen, while the scientific achievement is remarkable, you must understand our concerns. This technology represents a fundamental shift in the balance of power. Humanity is young, impetuous. Your species still struggles with internal conflicts." "With respect, First Speaker," Sarah countered, "that's precisely why we're presenting this openly. We could have kept it secret, developed it quietly. Instead, we're offering to share our research, to work with the Confederation to establish proper protocols and safeguards." The discussion continued for hours, but Sarah could see the growing realization in the aliens' eyes. Humanity wasn't asking for permission. They were extending a courtesy by informing the Confederation at all. The quantum resonance technology worked, it was reproducible, and it was now a fact of galactic life. As the session ended, Admiral Torres transmitted the activation codes to bring the prototype ship's systems fully online, a calculated show of trust that they'd been powered down during the summit. The quantum cores hummed to life, their signature unmistakable to the Confederation sensors. Sarah watched the alien representatives filing out, their conversations hushed but intense. Humanity had just changed the rules of a game that had been played the same way for millennia. The question now was how the galaxy's old guard would respond to these new players and their impossible weapons. The answer would come sooner than any of them expected, and from a direction none had anticipated. The ultimatum. The Confederation's response came 6 standard months after the Arcturus summit. Dr. Sarah Chen was in her lab beneath Olympus Mons when the transmission arrived, its priority markers cutting through all normal communication protocols. The holographic form of first speaker Zathrax materialized in her workspace, all 4 arms held in the formal position of official proclamation. By unanimous vote of the Confederation Council, effective immediately, all vessels equipped with quantum resonance technology are hereby banned from operation within Confederation space. The Vor's voice carried the weight of 12,000 years of galactic law. This includes testing, transport, or demonstration of such systems. Humanity may maintain a defensive fleet for its own territory, but any armed vessel crossing beyond your designated borders will be considered an act of war. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. First speaker, you know this technology represents more than weapons. The medical applications alone will be evaluated by Confederation researchers using appropriate safeguards. Zathrax's secondary eyes blinked in what she'd learned was a gesture of finality. This is not a negotiation, Dr. Chen. The Council has spoken. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with the implications. She wasn't surprised by the ban. She'd expected something like this. What troubled her was the timing. Why now, after months of apparent acceptance? The answer came 3 days later, when the first reports reached Earth from the outer colonies. Something was destroying settled worlds along the galaxy's western spiral arm. Not conquering, destroying. Entire planets reduced to fields of debris, their quantum fields completely disrupted. Admiral Torres arrived on Mars personally to show Sarah the sensor data. "They think we did this," he said without preamble, projecting images of the devastation. "That's why they issued the ban. 7 colonies wiped out, all showing signs of quantum disruption similar to our weapons signature." Sarah studied the readings, her blood running cold. Similar, but not identical. These attacks are crude, brute force. Our technology is precise, surgical. This is like comparing a scalpel to a sledgehammer. Try explaining that to species who've lost thousands of citizens. Torres paced the length of her lab. The Confederation's refusing to launch an official investigation. They're calling it an internal matter for the affected regions. Because admitting there's another force out there with quantum disruption technology would mean acknowledging they were wrong about us. Sarah brought up her latest research models. But there's something else in these readings. These attacks, they're not random. There's a pattern, an intelligence behind them. Over the next weeks, the pattern became clearer. The attacks were methodical, moving inward along specific stellar corridors. Whatever was responsible wasn't just destroying worlds, it was consuming them, breaking down matter at the quantum level and absorbing the energy released. The Confederation's response was to increase patrols along its core worlds while continuing to ignore the plight of outer colonies. Humanity watched, restricted to their own space, as reports of destruction grew more frequent. Then came the distress call from Proxima Colony. The message was garbled, fragmentary, but what came through chilled everyone who heard it. "They're not ships. They're like nothing we've. Quantum fields collapsing. Please, anyone. They're consuming everything." Sarah was in the emergency council meeting when the final transmission arrived. Visual this time. The footage showed massive, dark forms moving against the stars, their surfaces rippling with impossible geometries. Where they touched Proxima's orbital stations, matter simply ceased to exist, converted to pure energy, and drawn into their void-like bodies. "We can't stay silent any longer," Sarah argued before Earth's combined military and scientific leadership. "These entities, whatever they are, they're not going to stop at the outer colonies. The Confederation's ban isn't just wrong. It's going to get everyone killed." Admiral Torres nodded grimly. "Agreed. But we need proof. Concrete evidence that our technology isn't responsible for these attacks. Without that, any move we make will be seen as aggression. Then we get proof." Sarah pulled up the sensor data from Proxima. "These beams operate on principles similar to our quantum resonance technology, but there are key differences. If we can understand how they work, we can prove our innocence and maybe find a way to stop them." The decision was made. A small fleet of research vessels, officially designated as observation platforms to comply with the Confederation ban, would be dispatched to the edge of human space. Their mission: document the entities, analyze their quantum signatures, and find a way to defend against them. Sarah insisted on going with the expedition. As they prepared to depart, a final message arrived from First Speaker Zathrax, a warning that any human ships detected outside their territory would face immediate military response. "They're so focused on containing us," Sarah muttered as she watched Earth recede behind them. "They can't see the real threat until it's too late." She didn't know then just how right she was, or how soon the galaxy would learn the true meaning of devastation. The rising storm. The research vessel Copernicus hung at the edge of the Tai Ophiuchi system, running silent. Dr. Sarah Chen and her team had been tracking the entities for 3 weeks now, watching as they systematically consumed everything in their path. Through the ship's quantum sensors, she could see them clearly now. Vast, geometric shapes that seemed to fold through dimensions that shouldn't exist. "They're not just consuming matter," she recorded in her log. "They're consuming space-time itself. Each attack creates microscopic tears in the fabric of reality. The quantum disruption we detected, it's just a side effect of their feeding process." The entities, which the crew had started calling Voidborn, moved with terrible purpose. Their patterns suggested not just intelligence, but ancient knowledge. They weren't mindless destroyers. They were harvesting energy with devastating efficiency. Admiral Torres's voice came through on the secure channel. "Sarah, we've got movement from the Confederation. A task force just departed Arcturus Prime, headed for the Tai Ophiuchi system. They're finally responding to the threat." Sarah checked the tactical display. The Confederation fleet was impressive. Over 300 capital ships representing the combined might of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Under normal circumstances, it would have been an overwhelming force. But these weren't normal circumstances. "They don't understand what they're dealing with," she said. "Their weapons, they'll be useless. The Voidborn exist partially outside normal spacetime. Conventional attacks will pass right through them." She watched helplessly as the Confederation fleet engaged the Voidborn. The battle, if it could be called that, was devastatingly brief. Energy weapons dissipated harmlessly into the void-like surfaces. Kinetic weapons disappeared without impact. The aliens' most powerful ships, representing millennia of technological advancement, might as well have been firing spitballs at a black hole. Then the Voidborn responded. They moved with impossible speed, their geometries shifting and folding. Where they touched the Confederation ships, reality itself seemed to unravel. Quantum fields collapsed, atomic bonds dissolved, and matter itself was converted to pure energy and absorbed. Out of 300 ships, only 47 escaped. The Confederation's greatest military force had been neutralized in less than an hour. "Now they'll have to listen," Torres said grimly. But Sarah wasn't so sure. She'd seen how the older species thought, how deeply their pride and traditions ran. Even this catastrophic defeat might not be enough to overcome their prejudices. She was right. The Confederation's response was to order an immediate evacuation of all systems in the Voidborn's projected path. They would sacrifice the outer regions of their territory in hopes of buying time to find a solution. Their ban on human quantum technology remained in place. But Sarah had seen something during the battle, something that changed everything. "Look at this," she told Torres, sending him the sensor data. "When our quantum sensors probe the Voidborn, they react. They notice us. Nothing else seems to register to them, but our technology. It operates on principles they recognize." Torres understood immediately. "You're saying we might be able to hurt them." "More than that. The quantum resonance effect. It's like we accidentally recreated a tiny version of what they do naturally. If we can understand how they manipulate space-time." She let the implication hang. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. "The Confederation won't lift the ban. If we move against the Voidborn, we'll be fighting two enemies." "No," Sarah corrected him. "We'll be fighting one enemy. The Confederation will have to choose. Maintain their ban and watch their civilization be consumed, or accept that humanity might be the only hope for survival." The decision was made. Earth's quantum resonance fleet, officially mothballed but secretly maintained, began to mobilize. Sarah and her team worked frantically to modify their weapons based on what they'd learned about the Voidborn. But time was running out. The Voidborn were accelerating their harvest, moving faster toward the galaxy's core worlds. Already, dozens of systems had gone dark. Refugee ships choked the space lanes as civilizations that had stood for millennia faced extinction. And in the void between stars, ancient geometries shifted and folded, drawing ever closer to the heart of the galaxy. The Voidborn were coming, and with them, a truth that would shatter the Confederation's most cherished beliefs. The future of all spacefaring life might rest in the hands of the species they had feared and shunned. The storm was no longer rising. It had arrived, and humanity's response would determine whether civilization itself survived its fury. Breaking point. The Confederation Council chamber had never been so crowded or so quiet. Representatives from over 500 species packed the ancient hall on Arcturus Prime, watching as first speaker Zathrax faced the human delegation. The Vor leader's crystalline skin had dulled with stress, all four arms trembling slightly as he reviewed the latest reports. 15 major systems lost in the past week alone. The Rillican homeworld, gone. The ancient archives of the Myth-era, consumed. Evacuation fleets desperately racing the Voidborn's advance, knowing that conventional drives couldn't outrun beings that bent spacetime to their will. "You claim you can fight them," Zathrax said finally, his translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in his harmonic speech. "That your quantum resonance technology might be effective where all our weapons have failed." Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the council, Admiral Torres at her side. The holographic displays around them showed the Voidborn's inexorable advance toward the galaxy's core. "We don't just claim it," she replied. "We can prove it. The data from our research expedition. The illegal expedition that violated our ban." A Rillican representative interrupted, their crystalline form vibrating with anger. "While our homeworld burned, you were conducting unauthorized experiments." "While your homeworld burned," Torres countered, his voice cutting through the chamber, "we were learning how to fight back. The quantum resonance effect doesn't just damage the Voidborn. It disrupts their connection to our spacetime. We can hurt them. We can stop them. But we need to act now." The debate raged for hours. The younger species largely supported humanity's offer of help, having seen their own weapons fail against the Voidborn. But the elder races, those who had shaped Confederation policy for millennia, resisted. Their pride, their traditions, their very understanding of their place in the cosmos, all would be undone by accepting that humanity's dangerous technology was their only hope. Then the news arrived. The Voidborn had changed course. They were no longer following their methodical pattern. They had turned as one, toward Arcturus Prime itself. "They know," Sarah realized, horror dawning. They can sense our quantum technology. Every probe, every scan we've conducted, we've been drawing their attention. They're coming here. Now. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Emergency evacuation protocols activated, but everyone knew it was too late. Conventional ships couldn't escape in time. The Confederation's mighty defense fleet would be useless. In orbit, humanity's observation vessels revealed their true nature. Hidden weapon systems powered up, quantum cores humming to life. They were warships, secretly maintained despite the ban, waiting for exactly this moment. The Confederation has a choice. Torres transmitted to the Council. You can maintain your ban and watch your capital fall, or you can authorize us to engage. Either way, we're not running. We're not hiding. We're fighting. Sarah's modifications to the quantum resonance weapons were untested. The calculations suggested they would work, but the scale of power needed to affect beings that consumed entire worlds. It was unprecedented. The Voidborn appeared in the Arcturus system like tears in reality itself, their impossible geometries casting shadows through dimensions that shouldn't exist. 5 of them, larger than any they'd encountered before, moving with terrible purpose toward the seat of galactic civilization. Zathrax stood in the council chamber, his aged form straightening with decision. "The ban is lifted," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of law. "All Confederation forces will support the human fleet. May whatever powers exist in this universe have mercy on us all." Humanity's ships moved to engage, their quantum cores pulsing with power that made reality itself shiver. Sarah watched from the Copernicus's bridge as the modifications she'd made to the weapons powered up. Everything they'd learned about the Voidborn, every scrap of data from their observations, had led to this moment. "We're not just fighting for Earth now," she transmitted to the fleet. "We're not just fighting for humanity. This is about the survival of all life in the galaxy. Everything we've built, everything we've learned, everything we might become. It all ends if we fail here." The Voidborn approached, their vast forms distorting space around them. Behind humanity's lines, the combined remains of the Confederation fleet waited, ready to support however they could. But everyone knew the truth. This would be decided by humanity's quantum resonance weapons, or it wouldn't be decided at all. Sarah gave the order to fire, knowing that the next few moments would determine the fate of galactic civilization. The quantum cores reached full power, and reality itself held its breath. Symphony of thunder. The quantum resonance weapons fired, and space itself screamed. Where conventional weapons had passed harmlessly through the Voidborn, humanity's modified quantum beams struck true. Reality warped around the points of impact as two fundamental forces collided: the Voidborn's space-time consuming power and humanity's precision-engineered quantum disruption. From the Copernicus's bridge, Dr. Sarah Chen watched her theories put to the ultimate test. The Voidborn reacted instantly, their impossible geometries twisting as they recognized the threat. For the first time in recorded history, the ancient entities showed something new: hesitation. Multiple quantum field disruptions detected. Her science officer reported, "The modifications are working. We're affecting their connection to our spacetime." But the Voidborn weren't easily defeated. They responded with devastating force, their void-like surfaces rippling as they launched attacks that began to tear apart the very fabric of space around Arcturus Prime. Human ships danced through the chaos, their AI systems calculating paths through the distorted spacetime that would have been impossible for organic pilots to navigate. This isn't just about firepower, Sarah realized, watching the battle unfold. It's about precision, understanding. They consume reality itself, but we've learned to manipulate it with surgical accuracy. Admiral Torres's flagship, the Humanity's Dawn, coordinated the fleet's movements. Each ship's quantum resonance weapon was calibrated slightly differently, creating a complex interference pattern. Where single beams had wounded the Voidborn, the combined effect began to lock them into normal spacetime. "They're not just weapons," Sarah transmitted to the fleet. "Synchronize your quantum fields. Create a resonance cascade. Don't try to destroy them. Try to constrain them." The human fleet moved in perfect coordination, their quantum beams weaving a web of disrupted spacetime around the Voidborn. The ancient entities fought back furiously, their attacks becoming more desperate as they felt themselves being trapped. From the Confederation's ships, waves of sensor data poured in. The older species might not be able to harm the Voidborn directly, but their millennia of experience in observing space-time phenomena proved invaluable. Their readings helped the human fleet adjust their quantum fields in real time, tightening the trap. One of the Voidborn broke free, its form twisting through impossible angles as it lunged for Arcturus Prime. The planet's population watched in horror as death itself seemed to reach for them. But 3 human ships intercepted its path, their quantum beams crossing in a precise geometric pattern. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The Voidborn's connection to normal spacetime collapsed, its vast form imploding as the very forces it used to consume worlds turned inward. Where an entity that had destroyed entire civilizations had been, nothing remained but rapidly dissipating quantum fluctuations. The remaining Voidborn reacted to their companion's destruction with what could only be described as rage. Their attacks intensified, reality buckling under the force of their assault. Human ships were lost, their quantum cores overloading as they pushed their weapons beyond design tolerances. But the strategy was working. One by one, the Voidborn found themselves trapped by humanity's quantum web, their ability to shift between dimensions increasingly constrained. When the end came, it was both terrible and beautiful to witness. 4 simultaneous quantum resonance cascades, perfectly synchronized, caused the ancient entities to collapse in on themselves. The battle for Arcturus Prime was over. In the aftermath, as recovery ships moved to assist damaged vessels, Sarah received a priority transmission from First Speaker Zathrax. "We were wrong," the Vor leader admitted, his harmonics carrying deep humility. "Not just about your weapons, but about humanity itself. We saw your technology as too dangerous because we judged it by our own standards. We never considered that its true power lay not in its destructive capability, but in your species' understanding of how to use it responsibly." The council chambers, when Sarah and Taurus entered them the next day, were transformed. Where once humanity had been viewed with suspicion and fear, now they were welcomed as equals, perhaps even as leaders in the new age their victory had ushered in. The quantum resonance technology isn't just a weapon. Sarah addressed the assembled representatives. It's a key to understanding the fundamental nature of our universe. The Voidborn showed us what happens when such power is used purely for destruction. We can show the galaxy a better way. The integration of human quantum technology with the ancient knowledge of the Confederation species began immediately. Research that had been banned was now pursued openly, leading to breakthroughs in energy production, medicine, and space travel. But perhaps the most profound change was in how the galaxy's civilizations viewed each other. The Voidborn had nearly destroyed them not through superior power, but by exploiting their divisions and prejudices. Humanity's victory hadn't just saved lives. It had shown that true strength comes not from the weapons one possesses, but from the wisdom to know how to use them. As Sarah stood on the observation deck of the Copernicus, watching reconstruction efforts begin around Arcturus Prime, she reflected on how far they'd come. Humanity's warships, once feared as too devastating for combat, had proved to be exactly what the galaxy needed, not because of their power to destroy, but because of their wielders' determination to protect. The quantum cores hummed quietly in their ships, no longer hidden, no longer feared, but recognized as tools that, like humanity itself, had found their place among the stars.